initiative, that the GDOT ecology section is working on, to better, to understand, what kind of species inhabit the GDOT rights of way, and, what can we do in order to protect these species, in the long run. And this is essentially, a program-wide effort where we're doing field verification on existing locations that we know. And more importantly, we need to understand what kind of species, are actually inhabiting our right of ways in order to even decide, what we can do for them. So we started this effort, next slide, please. We started this effort by, basically kind of looking at an old database that we had, and it's an Excel spreadsheet. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and so we essentially looked back at a database that we had, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and this had information on all element occurrences that could potentially occur within GDOT rights of way. Now, the spreadsheet in itself, was kind of tied to multiple projects, and it was also information that we received from multiple agencies. There were a lot of shortcomings in the spreadsheet, which required, to be fixed. And in order to do that, we went ahead and kind of looked at, multiple reports and previous reports for all these projects, and, kind of compiled all that information, updated the spreadsheet, and then next slide, please. And so then we created a great list of species or known element occurrences that we know within GDOT rights of way. In addition to that, GDOT has 7 districts. We also reached out to each of our 7 districts, and we got information on, environmentally sensitive areas. And these are locations where, our district maintenance forces had installed environmentally sensitive area signs. And so we essentially got all that data from them. And in addition, we kind of compared all those locations with the GDOT element occurrence tracking spreadsheet to see if there was any overlap. Next slide, please. Subsequently, we also reached out, to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources and, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Field Office in the state of Georgia. And, we got information and data about, other element occurrences that GDOT was not privy to. Next slide, please. We also looked at, collecting this data from more partners, and, the Georgia Plant Conservation Alliance is an alliance that, GDOT's been a member to, I think, since the early 2000s. And, we rely on them for a lot of information and advice, when it comes to, protecting rare plants within GDOT rights of way. So we use all these databases, to compile a great list of locations, where we identified listed species, and these include both plants and animals, primarily terrestrial species, that we had to develop some sort of management plans in order to ensure, that we can manage these populations in the required or in the desired way. Next slide, please. So who's using our roadsides? We had this big list, and now what we had to do was essentially go back to each one of these sites and verify these sites to figure out, do we still have the species existing on site? Have these populations increased in size? And, a lot of this data was collected a very long time ago. And, we need to had to update that information with the latest and the greatest. So we had multiple consulting firms and, GDOT in-house staff kind of go out and conduct site visits at all these locations that we've identified, collect, GPS coordinates, draw polygons for these sites. And, and the overall objective was, once we identify a site, we've got to kind of demarcate it out in the field so that our contractors would essentially know, how to manage these sites. And in order to do that, we install environmentally sensitive area signs at each of these locations, or sites that, we are trying to protect. And in addition to that, the next step would be to develop management plans for each of these sites, so we can go ahead and, have our contractors and GDOT forces follow these management plans. Based on the current field work that's been, please go back to the next slide. Based on the current field work that's been completed, we have about 50 sites with a total of about, approximately 23 species. And all these sites don't just kind of include the only locations we know. There's multiple locations where we have culverts, which provides suitable habitat for multiple state and federally listed bat species. And in addition to that, we have multiple streams across the state, that harbor or provide suitable habitat for state and federally listed aquatic species. So management of these bats and aquatic species and streams is going to be handled separately outside of this overall effort. And this effort primarily focuses on plants and animals that you can find in the terrestrial environment. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier that once we identify a site, we've got to go out and install ESA signs. The next step would be to develop a management plan. Now, developing a management plan is quite a balancing act, where communication is the key. We're trying to kind of achieve two main objectives, with the development of management plans. The first being, with over 50,000 miles of roadway and approximately over 8 million licensed drivers, GDOT has a responsibility to ensure, that its infrastructure is safe for the traveling public. In addition to that, we also know that we've got species, that inhabit the rights of way. And so our rights of way are typically cleared right of way to right of way with mowers. And we've identified sites that need specific management interventions. So the balancing act is really, trying to achieve two things. One is the overall objective of safety, and the second objective of, in order to meet our legal requirements under the ESA and the Georgia Wildlife Protection Act, we need to also kind of ensure that the populations that we have within our rights of way are protected. Next slide, please. And so, most importantly, once we developed, once we identified these sites, the overall objective of the management plans, would be to kind of relay that over to our contractors and also to, our GDOT forces who could then go ahead and implement the management strategies that we've developed. Developing the management strategies was a huge effort, and I'm going to hand over the presentation to my co-presenter, Hannah Hill, who's going to take a deep dive into the overall effort of developing the management recommendations to incorporate them in the management plans. Over to you, Hannah.
All right, so to begin the effort of balancing all those needs, GDOT organized a working group of 3 transportation ecologists, myself and Sujai included, as well as 5 biologists from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. And we used as sort of a starting point, a list that had actually been created for a previous initiative. But we quickly kind of used that to narrow down our species as far as what management tactics we wanted to be creating. We narrowed down to species that just occurred in 3 kind of broad habitat types. The first is what you kind of picture as your typical right-of-way habitat. The grassy areas right adjacent to the roadways. But we also included species from some forested habitats, since GDOT does own a lot of forested right-of-way as well. And so species that are obviously there, and those forested areas do still incur maintenance activities. So we definitely wanted to include those in the effort. And then the last sort of broad category of species we wanted to include was anything that might be a stream bank lover or even aquatic, since those habitats at least pass under GDOT right-of-way. So they're going to incur at least indirect impacts from their maintenance activities, maybe even some direct impacts. So it's sort of our 3 broad categories we wanted to work with. And from there, once we started discussing sort of the broad management tactics that would be ideally implemented for a species, but then quickly worked to minimize the overall number of tactics that we were going to be using. And that was because GDOT really wanted to make sure these management plans were clear and consistent across the state, in order to, sorry, that's my place, sort of in order to increase compliance rates and sort of foster a quicker familiarity for the contractors who are going to be adhering to these plans. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought, as I knew would happen. That would be great. Thank you. All right, so what was I saying? So the minimization of the tactics, though, what that really looked like for GDOT was sort of accepting that they were going to have some species, some sites, ESA sites that were really going to be restricted more than they technically need to be. And that was since that priority was being given to the simplification of the plans. And so, you know, for example, here's a closer look. There we go. Sorry, the advancement is not liking me today. Closer look at some of those slimmed down. This is kind of what we ended up with, and particularly the mowing seasons ended up getting really restricted down to just 3 seasons, as opposed to going like with a species by species basis, where, you know, you could grab 30 different species off that spreadsheet that I was showing a second ago, and maybe have 20 different survey seasons that might vary by just a week or two on either end of their season. So instead, you know, this approach hopefully, sorry, I just completely keep losing my track. Allows the GDOT contractors to more quickly become familiar with the sort of entire suite of potential changes to their routine maintenance protocols, allowing them to better prepare for and adhere to the restrictions that any given site might face. And then from there, we worked to just formalize the verbiage associated with those tactics that we've been creating, really just to get into more of a contractual language and use like technical maintenance terms more familiar to the GDOT district employees as well as their contractors. And then lastly, and sort of the biggie, the biologists were, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. We established a standard population buffer for all of these. So basically, where are we going to be applying these management plans? So it was agreed upon with the agencies that we would apply a 100-foot buffer to the limits of any given population. And that would sort of serve as the area where these management plans were going to be applied. And so then lastly, as I started to say preemptively, the biologists did, you know, the bulk of the work, the bulk of what we needed, which was categorizing what any given species needs for their management tactics for their protection. And so the final product of this spreadsheet, which this is just a tiny snapshot of, really eases GDOT Ecology's process of creating and implementing these plans largely at the same time, dozens and dozens of plans, all while the sort of standardized language hopefully becomes more and more familiar to the contractors over time. And so once we got those management tactics sort of firmed up with the agencies, we moved on and worked with a group of, thank you, landscape architects, agronomists, and maintenance liaisons also from GDOT, just to make sure they didn't see any red flags with, you know, the language that we were using in restrictions, and also to make sure, you know, they didn't see any logistical issues with getting these implemented in their typical maintenance processes. You know, these are the folks who directly work with GDOT district offices, and they're the ones who are maintaining GDOT's right-of-way on a day-to-day basis. And so ensuring that they sort of understand the management plans and buy in to their use was really key for ensuring that the species thrive. So where are we now? Field verifications are still going on and will be until we've sort of checked off the list that Sujai was referring to that we'd compiled. It's looking like, unless any newbies pop up, it's looking like field verification efforts will be done by the end of this fall survey season. And then as those efforts continue, we've just recently started redesigning the standard ESA sign in an effort to hopefully increase their detectability and thus decrease the chances that these maintenance crews are going to overlook them out in the field. And we have started incorporating some of these tactics into some of the first site-specific plans. None of them have officially been rolled out yet, but we're starting to compile them. And then we are still working on the implementation logistics with the state maintenance office and the districts. And as these plans become more and more commonplace, we hope to continue working with the agencies to create training materials specifically for the GDOT maintenance contractors and the GDOT in-house maintenance staff to really foster a sense of pride, a sense of pride and care about these sites by teaching them why we have them, why these plans exist, why it's important to adhere to them. And so hopefully we'll develop Spanish and English translations right off the bat with potential for additional translations in the future. And then looking even further into the future, hoping to shift the right-of-way maintenance contracting strategy into a completely new era, where instead of having the GDOT district in-house staff or their contractors be managing these sites, shifting that responsibility to contractors who meet specific pre-qualifications to manage rare species. And then also going to be establishing a recurring population monitoring just to make sure it looks like our plans are doing what we intend. Also keep an eye on limits, make sure we don't need to expand anything. It'd be great if we did, if limits of populations are expanding over time. So I will wrap up by just saying, come see, well, it's supposed to be us, but Sujai's not here, me. Come see me at poster, what is now 10, everything got relabeled, to chat more about kind of this where are we going side of things, but also if you don't get a chance to ask me a question about the overall effort. Sujai, back to you for the close.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. And just as a closing remark, y'all, I'd just like to, extend sincere thanks, and gratitude towards our agency partners, the Department of Natural Resources, the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Southeastern Regional Office in Georgia, Arcadis, who's helped us a great deal with a lot of, building the overall effort, and coordinating, and also with a lot of the field work and, management plan development. We've got our contact information listed out on the slide, so feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to speak with you all or give you all a much more detailed presentation about, the step-by-step process that we actually undertook. That said, we could open up, the floor for questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Do implementation of how people are thinking about stuff. Does this also allow you to have space for implementation of new types of machinery? And if so, does it justify the cost and the thing? Taking advantage of that.
So does this justify basically additional equipment that might be needed for these management plans? Is it just more? I would hope so. I mean, I think we tried, but as we continue to work with the districts a little bit more, as we kind of fine tune these, we'll see if this is the reality. But I think we tried to stay within what is already a realm for GDOT manager or maintenance contractors. So I don't think there would necessarily need to be any new equipment. A lot of the requirements are things that do happen occasionally right now. It's just we're trying to get more consistent, more specific, and get a better handle of what's out there and where we need to be using them.